Duty of care is a legal responsibility you have to a person when you're rendering first aid, but not every person has that legal responsibility to another being. If a person falls down in front of you in the street, you don't have to render them first aid. But if they are in a workplace and you're employed as a first aid officer in that workplace, then you have a legal responsibility and a duty of care to that person to render first aid. You also have a duty of care if you're on the street and you start giving first aid, then you have a duty of care to continue first aid. You take on a duty of care, and then you have to stay with the person until they recover, or say the paramedics come and take over.
Hey, mate. Hey.
Hi.
I'm Matt. I'm a first aid officer now. Are you okay if I help you?
Yeah, I've banged my head somehow and my arm's all cut up on it. I don't know.
Yeah, you look like you got a bit of blood on your forehead, so I'm just going to put some pressure on that for you, all right? Yeah. This might hurt a little bit, all right? Sorry.
That's right.
Okay, now it looks like your arm's a little bit scuffed up as well, so could you support that? Perfect. Excellent. So I'm just going to ring the ambulance, all right?
Thanks, mate.
Okay.
Yep.
You're doing well.
Yeah.
You're doing well. Yes, hello. I need an ambulance. I'm here with the bloke who's been hit by a car. He looks like he's got injuries to his head and his arm, and I'm just out the front of the TAFE on Maitland Road. Thank you very much. You're on the way.
All right, thanks.
You're doing well, mate. You're doing well. Does it hurt anywhere else?
No.
You also have a duty of care if you have someone in your care. So if you're in a childcare environment and a child needs first aid, then you have a duty of care to those as well. And a teacher would be in the same situation. She'd have a duty of care to the students. When you render first aid, you need to be respectful to the casualty. You need to consider their cultural background. You need to consider their gender as well, and perhaps their age. It may not be appropriate in some cultures to be a male rendering first aid and touching a female. So if there's a female on the scene, you might seek her assistance to do that. Someone who maybe English is not their first language, you might find that you need to speak a lot clearer and in simple language. You may need to rephrase what you're saying often so they can understand you. In some cultures, things like looking someone straight in the eye might be offensive, so you need to be aware of that. If you're unsure, ask the casualty, ask other people at the scene who may be able to help you with that. A first aider needs to consider their own skills and limitations when they're rendering assistance, because they don't want to obviously cause any further harm to the casualty. So they need to consider their knowledge, their skills level, and not overstep them. They also need to consider what resources they have, what the scene is like. Is it a dangerous scene? Is it a scene that might be hard to work in? And seek assistance from others if you need it. At the scene of a first aid incident, you always have to get consent from the casualty. Consent means just getting permission for you to render first aid. If you don't get consent and you touch someone, then they could have you up on an assault charge. So you should always be asking the casualty, may I render first aid to you? May I help you with this?
I'm a first aid officer now. Are you okay if I help you?
Yeah, I've banged my head somehow and...
If the person is unconscious, then you can't be asking them, but there is a law that says that any unconscious casualty gives you implied consent. So that means you can just assume that all unconscious casualties you can render first aid to. Or if a casualty is in such a condition that they are unable to give you consent due to the nature of their injury, then that's implied consent as well. If it's a child, or someone under 18, then you should be seeking consent from a parent or guardian if they are on the scene. If they're not, then it's reasonable to think that you can render first aid.
Hello, can you hear me? Can I help you at all? Hello, do you need any help? Hi, I'd just like to report an unconscious person.
When you give first aid to someone, anything that they tell you must be treated as being private and confidential. If a workmate asks you what happened, you should just tell him that it's confidential and you can't disclose it to anyone. The only people you can tell are emergency services when they arrive, or in some places you may have to tell the workplace supervisor.
I heard there was an incident here today. What happened?
Oh, well, I can't really say a lot about it, man. I gave the paramedics a rundown on it, but yeah, there's not a lot I can really say about it, unfortunately.
Is he drunk or what?
Oh, well, I can't really say. I don't really know, but I'm not really allowed to say much about that, I think.
Being involved in a first aid incident may be quite traumatic and quite stressful. You might find it would be good to take part in a debriefing session. That may be with the ambulance, it may be with colleagues or other people who helped out at the scene. You might also need to take part in stress management technique support at maybe at your workplace. You may also need to seek counselling, because you may find that some of these, the effects of what you've seen may impact on your daily life and your emotions. These things may come on straight away, or they may come on weeks after you've rendered first aid.